All right, everyone. A few days ago, when it was announced that I was going to be the new co-host of Happy Homelands with Ramzpaul, one of our favorite commentators, not journalists, and I don't think he even uses that title because, as he's pointed out, Right Wing Watch is not a news site per se, it's an opinion site. Jared Holt decided to weigh in, and naturally, because he's incapable of thinking beyond this, he assumes that because I'm now connected with Ramzpaul through his show that I agree with Ramzpaul's views. Now, my views haven't changed, and largely neither have his, and it's unlikely that, like, Jared and others believe in this weird system where a person is inexorably dragged further right if they interact with people to the right of them. He never, by the way, makes that same claim about the left, which insinuates that the far right is much more convincing and powerful than the far left. I don't know why he believes this is true. It's funny, but he believes this apparently. But I'd like to mention something. Here's another way of actually analyzing Holt's behavior and the behavior of some of these other people that engage in this kind of defamatory attack. They're actually engaging in capitalism, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. Holt works currently for Right Wing Watch. This is a small, relatively unknown group. It's an asset of People for the American Way, which is in part a Soros asset, and this was something that was denied prior, but then the tweet was deleted that was denying it because it's actually objectively true. I believe it's even on the Wikipedia page. Anyway, this is a relatively small group. Now, how do you work your way up? If I'm a leftist activist, I'm trying to make a paycheck writing opinion pieces, getting a better position. I want to be managerial instead of, the little guy. How do I do that? What's the best way? Antagonize the big players on YouTube and get them to respond. Insofar as Holt successfully gets people to respond to him, he's actually engaging in capitalism because ultimately what it is it's a career pitch. It's a way of him trying to outmaneuver other people who do the same thing he does in order to grow his own potential audience. Number one, potentially make money from that, but number two, get noticed by the big boys. Get noticed by the New York Times, who may want a contribution piece. Maybe the Washington Post is looking for a new staffer. Maybe some leftist, maybe Bernie Sanders, he steps aside, another leftist takes his place. Maybe they're looking for a staff. Maybe they want to hire Holt. They want him to do media outreach. Maybe any group, activistic, political, whatever it happens to be, maybe they're looking to fill that position. They see his hit piece on YouTubers and they say, well, this seems like a guy who's sort of with it, and he's getting all this attention. He's getting talked about by these people with these audiences. They're catering to millions of people every day. Let's hire him. And so he makes, what does he make? You got to pay the bills somehow. He's actually engaging in capitalism, and I actually applaud his success. Because with the exception of a lull there around 2019, by and large, he has been successful in generating controversy. Now, it's based on lies, of course. Ramzpaul is not a Nazi. The fact that there's an SPLC page about him doesn't matter. The SPLC's opinion doesn't really matter to anyone at this point, and not without good reason. The idea that my mask has slipped and that this is evidence that he was right about me all along, it's very interesting because I seem to remember him editing an article that he actually links there in the tweet that he made the other day. I remember him editing that after I confronted him and actually spoke with him privately, which is something that most people don't know. And obviously I'm not going to divulge the conversation or anything, but we spoke, and I informed him. I do not believe in ethno-nationalism. I am a libertarian. I really don't care what race or creed or color or something a person is. That doesn't really make any difference to me. My connection to the alt-right was largely in the form of debating Spencer and others. I debate people and I get linked with them because I debated them. For the Data Society report, their initial write-up, the initial couple paragraphs of the whole report are about that same Warski-hosted debate between Spencer and Sargon that I was part of. And the idea was that somehow this was enabling the far right. Like the fact that this stream was popular automatically meant that the far right was the only group that could benefit by it. Well, my association with Ramzpaul, here's what I would ask, and this would be a fair question, I think, to ask. Why is it that the speculation is that if I'm on a show with Ramzpaul, he is necessarily chipping away at my audience and turning them into civic nationalists or something, as opposed to me potentially converting elements of his audience to libertarianism or even liberalism? Because that is never something that's actually explained. The Data Society report doesn't mention the topic. Holt doesn't mention the topic. But insofar as he's using people with larger audiences to try to gain more street cred and try to get a better position or more clout for his articles or more people to listen to his podcast, he's engaging arguably in capitalism, using the largely unbridled capitalism of the internet. Till the last 5 years or so, censorship on the internet for the most part was really a foreign concept, not even liked by most elements of the left. It wasn't really until the 2016 election and people said, well, it was obviously this Keck thing that we're hearing about. Pepe caused Trump to win with meme magic, so we need to crack down on this because no fun allowed. It's basically the origins of censorship in the tolerated modern sense, even among neoliberals. The soccer moms got worried about internet subcultures and they didn't know anything about them, so they digested what MSNBC and CNN told them, and a lot of them would report on things like the Data Society hit piece. No, it's not real. The fact is that Holt's article, insofar as it talks about me being connected to the far right, again, my views have been out there, my videos have been out there for more than 10 years. If somebody wants to familiarize themselves with my views, I've got a brief primer on my Twitter as my pinned tweet, and they can look through my videos. They're not going to find a whole lot of far-right sentiment unless you're talking about taxes. My ideas on the border aren't far-right. I'm certainly not far-right on things like gay rights or certainly abortion. I guess on guns. But that's not really a left-right issue. That's more of a strict versus loose constructionist issue. By and large, the Republicans and elements of conservatism have left us behind on gun rights as well. Yeah, I'm further out than they are. Beyond that, though, the idea that I'm an ethno-nationalist because I'm on a show with a civic nationalist is kind of funny. It's become amusing because at some point people have also started to tune that stuff out. Like the heyday of the pro-censorship thing was 2017, thereabouts, 2017, 2018. Since then, it's really slowed down, and I actually predicted that that would happen. It's happened at about the same rate I expected, which is people have sort of gotten over that panic, and they've got bigger things to talk about right now. You got a pandemic, you've got world economic downturn, you've got wars and rumors of wars, which you always have, and people have sort of gotten past it the same way, like I can remember back in the 90s for a while, people were really scared of Eminem and like rap, and suburban white kids started listening to Biggie or something, and parents went nuts. Within a few years, their parents were listening to Eminem too. I can remember this. It happened in my household. Yeah, I listened to that for a while. You know, I was a 2000s kid. I didn't have much of a choice because it was on the fucking radio every single fucking goddamn day, and it lasted for an entire decade. At some point, you know, my mom was singing along to Eminem music. Well, before it had been announced on the news, oh my God, here's this new evildoer. He's the next Elvis. He swings his hips and more around, and he says fuck, and he's going to teach your child about, you know, I don't know, sex and guns and rock and roll and stuff. It was really funny. Moral panics snuff themselves out. And you see neoliberals attacked. Maher has gotten attacked by these same people, as though there's something wrong with him because he's not completely sold on political correctness. And he's a lifelong liberal. I would class him as relatively far left, including in the social sense. It's not like he does himself any favors for me, but in the occasional more cognizant moments, he manages to piss off these people too. And I would also point out, and let's point one further thing out, the audience for groups like this and individuals like this, they tend to have like hammer and sickle usernames on Twitter and Mark's avatars, and yet they're calling me extreme. So I like to keep that in mind, and then I, of course, have a good chuckle. So congratulations. I mean, by making me respond to this, technically he wins. That's why I don't respond to the breadtube leftists, because their entire strategy relies upon antagonizing other people in order to grift off their larger audiences. It's a reaction to the success of other people who are in political analysis, political commentary. Now, of course, as YouTube continues to grow, and certainly alt tech in some of these sites, it's not really harmful. It's almost a weird symbiosis because, you know, it's kind of hip and it lends itself to the blood sports side of things. But I've never been interested in that, so I don't really want to partake. That's about all. Peace out.